Good morning and a big welcome to Blackpool. I'm Liz Savage, a Labour's parliamentary candidate for another wonderful northwest seaside town, just down the coast, Southport. As someone who graduated as a teacher under the last Labour government and was actually paid whilst training under its brilliant graduate teacher scheme, it's a huge honour to be here today with members of our fantastic shadow education team and Jeremy, our excellent leader. I'm also delighted to introduce our candidate for Blackpool North and someone I've known and respected for some time, the wonderful Gordon Marsden. He's been MP for Blackpool South since 1997 and has proved an exemplary Member of Parliament for the constituency. Gordon and I have several interests in common. First, we obviously both want a Labour government to help rebuild our communities, yours in Blackpool, mine in Southport, and those right across the country. It's a topic close to both of our hearts. Gordon formed the first Labour group of MPs to represent seaside and coastal towns. And when I first became the PPC in Southport, Gordon was kind enough to meet with me to discuss the issues that both our northwest seaside towns face. As chair of the all-parliamentary group of veterans, Gordon and I also have a strong joint interest in the welfare of our service personnel. My own contribution is currently as a British Legion Poppy organiser, and it was very heartening to see our new policies in support of our forces personnel being unveiled this week. Gordon is, of course, also the Shadow Minister for Higher Education, Further Education and Skills. And that's why we are here today, to hear of our party's plans for lifelong learning through our plans for a national education service, one that can be accessed at any age, one that gives chances to people who are written off at an early age by a system that relies heavily on academic performance rather than skills, a system that currently doesn't allow for people to progress at different rates with their abilities. Well, we will change that, and Gordon is going to tell you how. Blackpool, please give a warm welcome to one of your own, the fantastic Gordon Marsden.
Thank you very much, Liz, and it's a great pleasure to have you here in Blackpool, where we can see the sea. 7 years ago this month, I was asked, as Skills Minister, to open Ruskin College's new campus in Headington. And in the speech that I made then, I captured the time at which Ruskin College was founded, 1899, a time of rapid transition, change. And isn't that where we are today, breaking down silos? As the impact of austerity and the number of adult learners after 2010 fell, it was obvious we needed a different way. But it took the 2015 election, Jeremy's election, and his understanding and connectivity, which formed the National Education Service, as E.M. Forster famously said, only connect, that provided the impetus. Time has come, not just for economic skills, arguments or moral imperatives, because these were identified as long ago as 1919 with the Adult Learning Commission in the wake of the Great War, but also because it's part of our social and community imperatives in the 21st century. And the group of 14 lifelong learning commissioners that were assembled have cut right across those silos in producing this report and this long bedeviled step change in learning. Our remit was wide. The interim report emphasised how broad that direction of travel was. It was ambitious, it was inclusive, and I hope prophetic. And today is the result. The co-chairs, Estelle Morris, Dave Ward, stalwart support from UCU, Andy Westwood, who put together the Leach report in the mid-2000s, which raised FE then, but prophetically indicated the world of knowledge and skills we need to get right for the 2020s. And I'm delighted we have the launch here in Blackpool, at a football club which was also a product of the late Victorian period, and which has done much over the years to promote skills and informal learning. This report and the action that flows from it in terms of the Labour Party making it its own is in stark contrast to many of the government's pronouncements since 2010. too little, too late to repair the marketised mind damage that was being done to hundreds of thousands of people of all ages. This is a report which endeavours to map out a vision for the next 10 to 15 years. It's in sharp contrast to the tinkering and piecemeal approach that I've described. Its recommendations have big implications for creating a breakthrough. It's about progression. It sets a roadmap for social justice, but it also offers immediate relief and a way out of the slough of despond into which so many people have descended. And that's a message relevant for a town like Blackpool, part of the network of beleaguered coastal and deindustrialised towns left behind in the last 10 years. This is the context in the principles and practical policies that the Lifelong Learning Commissioners have laid out in this report. And in those pages, we see the balance carefully preserved with the step changes to get jobs, but also building social capital and social justice. It draws on a huge range of materials and reports in this area, taken in submissions across the sector and work streams, providers, learners, employees. It also draws on cutting-edge research from a number of our commissioners, including Graham Atherton, who's a Blackpool lad and is here today. We were clear we were not here to tinker around the edges, and the breadth of this final report shows, I think, how radical we've been. And I want to give huge thanks to Jeremy for his consistent support and encouragement, and indeed to Angela, who not only uses her own life story to show how she gets it, but for the encouragement that she has given to all of us throughout this project. The front-loaded approach of education is increasingly out of sync with our modern economy. People need to access education in smaller pieces, picking up credits and short qualifications. And we also need to see more increased funding for our unions to support the vital work of union learning reps in the workplace. Models of credit accumulation and transfer which support people to come in and out, recognising that not all learning is qualification-based. And this at a time when the worlds of higher, further and online and distance learning are morphing into each other very quickly indeed. Our NES, our Commission, is a fundamental challenge to the attitude that has predominated in Tory-led governments since 2010, seeing education through life as simply a commodity, a private consumable to be pursued more often by competition than collaboration. We reject that. It's about expanding people's ability to learn while they earn, but it also reminds us that education is not simply something that's drummed into people, but a process that engages their talent and aspiration for theirs and all other benefits in this country. I want to conclude with 3 personal comments. My own career path before I became an MP gave me 20 years' work with OU students as a part-time course tutor. The famous socialist educationalist, R.H. Tawney, said that he learnt as much from his WEA students as he was able to impart to them. I have to say that in my 20 years as an OU tutor, I experienced much of the same. Not least the determination and dedication to see things through, even if it meant in one case a one-to-one tutorial in hospital when one of my students recovering from heart surgery. What I have learnt from people in Blackpool, Angela's talked frequently about how Labour governments helped her from 1997 to 2010 with Sure Start. I remember the woman that I met in early 2003 at the Sure Start and Mearside. The first time I met her, she was looking for help with her own 2 children. The second time I met her, 3 years later, she sorted herself out and was running the parents group. And the third time I met her, just before the 2010 election, she had taken up a course to become a primary school teacher. I'm enormously proud also, on a personal basis, of my grandfather, Fred Marsden. He died when I was 8, but he left an indelible impression on me. He was an engineer by trade, but the books on his shelves, copies of Shakespeare stories and historical novels told of other horizons, and the history horizon, of course, was one that I pursued. Ruskin famously said that there is no wealth but life. The wealth of our nation is played out through the lives of those able to grasp the riches of education, the satisfaction of acquiring skills, and the way in which those can underpin advancement and confidence of hundreds of thousands of our fellow citizens to their individual benefit and to that of our country. I believe that what you are presented with today in this report forms that vision, which will take us through to the 2030s, and that vision, which has been captured by Jeremy and Angela and myself, and which today you will hear the very specific pledges about. Thank you.
Blackpool, please can we have a big round of applause for our great leader, Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, and can I first say a big thank you to Blackpool Football Club for giving us the space this morning. What a wonderful pitch you've got, and as an Arsenal supporter, I wish you well. And can I say thank you to Gordon for what he just said, the work that he's done, and the absolute passion he has for unleashing the potential in people through education. His sense of learning, his sense of knowledge, but also his sense of the ability that's to be unleashed in others. Gordon, thank you so much for all that you've done in this incredible piece of work. And to the team that produced this absolutely excellent report, The Future is Ours to Learn. This is groundbreaking stuff. This is something that will enrich the lives of thousands and thousands of people in years to come if we get the chance to put these policies into operation. And I'm very, very proud of the work that you've done, Gordon, and our whole team has done. And I thank Angela for her work as Shadow Secretary of State for Education, who brings a spirit, an energy, a determination, a wit, a humour, and just about everything else to the job itself. And she has this passion to ensure that everyone has a chance in life, and she often makes the point that her chances in life were given because she was able to access Sure Start, because she was able to access people to help her out of what had been, I hope she wouldn't mind me saying so, a very difficult life as a young person. What an example. And isn't it that kind of person you want guiding our education policy in the future? Somebody that totally values the necessity of getting the best out of everybody and understanding the strength that's there behind every young person, even if their immediate appearance is one that they're very hostile to an education opportunity. Angela brings the best out of them all. You should hear her lecture in the Shadow Cabinet. And it's great to be here with Chris, our fantastic candidate for Blackpool North and Cleveland's. He and I were at Preston New Road together, we've campaigned together, and he is somebody that epitomises the spirit, the hope and the determination to get investment into Blackpool and improve the town for everybody, not just the visitors, those that live here. Chris, thank you for all the work that you do. I want to... If I may, before I say anything about education, I'd like to address another issue, but I'll do it briefly, but it's a very, very important one. And that's the issue of the devastating floods that we've seen across very large parts of our country. More than 1,000 homes have been evacuated, and one woman, Annie Hall, has lost her life. Our hearts go out to her, her family and her friends. The Conservative government's response to the floods has been woeful. Just imagine if this had happened in Surrey instead of Yorkshire and the East Midlands. I think that would have been a very, very different story. When terrible floods struck the south in 2014, David Cameron, the then Prime Minister, rightly said, money is no object in the relief effort. Whatever money is needed, we will spend it. This time, Boris Johnson waited 5 days before calling a Cobra meeting, and only after I wrote to him demanding it in the first place. We now need a guarantee from the government that the Belwyn money, the Belwyn formula money, is made immediately available to all the local authorities in areas affected by the floods. Again, back in 2014, David Cameron vowed, we will build a more resilient country for the future. Instead, under the Tories, frontline flood response and Environment Agency staff have been slashed by a fifth and a fire and rescue service by nearly a quarter. So here we are again. We are in the midst of a climate and environmental emergency. Funding flood defences and emergency responders is an absolute priority. It's just plain common sense. And that is what a Labour government will deliver. Just plain common sense to help people in an emergency to get through what is the most traumatic and disastrous time of their lives. As Liz was pointing out, and I compliment her on the fantastic work she's doing in Southport, many people will know that if Labour is elected exactly 1 month from today, we will scrap university tuition fees and restore maintenance grants. But that's just one part of our life-changing plan, a life-changing plan for real change, because we will invest in a national education service, free at the point of use, so that everyone can learn at every stage of their lives. It's one of the policies that I'm most excited about. Imagine it, a national education service that's there for you as an adult and in old age, so that no one is held back. You see, I see education as an escalator running alongside you throughout your life, that you can get on and off whenever you want. That's what Labour's National Education Service will offer people. Free education as a right for all. Under our plan, skills and vocational qualifications will be valued in exactly the same way as university degrees and academic qualifications are valued. So, if you left school with a few GCSEs but now want to learn a new trade, Labour will make education free for you. If you've done the same job for your whole working life and want a change of direction, Labour will make education free for you. And if you've always wanted to learn new skills but can't afford the training, Labour will make education free for you. The National Education Service will allow you to pursue your dreams. But we don't just benefit from our own education. We benefit from everybody else's education too. Tomorrow's jobs are in the green and high-tech industries. We need people to have skills to take on those new jobs and those new challenges, breathing new life into our communities that have never recovered from the destruction of industry in the 1980s by Margaret Thatcher's Conservative government. We cannot have a 21st century economy if we only have 20th century skills. And by ensuring the ultra-rich pay their way, we can provide training to everyone who needs it. Personally, I'd rather give a break to a worker who wants to learn than give a tax break to the billionaire who wants for nothing. That's the difference between Labour and the Conservatives. It makes me angry when I see big multinational corporations like Amazon and Google who rely on a very well-educated workforce to make their millions, paying hardly any tax in our country. The National Education Service will actually benefit those companies by giving their workers the chance to advance their skills. I simply say it would be nice if those multinationals could pay their share towards it. And it makes me angry when I hear of schools closing on a Friday because they can't pay their bills, while the government can afford multi-billion-pound tax giveaways to corporations and the very richest. It's our children who suffer as a result. We should have the best education service in the world. And what is the best? The best is a Sure Start centre in every community to offer health, and welfare advice to new parents. The best is 30 hours of free childcare to all 2, 3 and 4-year-olds. If you're the parent of a 2-year-old, you'll save £5,000 a year from our policy. The best is all primary school children learning in classes of fewer than 30. The best is a free school meal for every child in primary school, and we'll put VAT on private school fees to help pay for it. The best is an education that prepares children for life, not just exams, so we'll get rid of unnecessary SAT testing. The best is every child being able to learn a musical instrument, to learn drama and dance, the things that bring us joy through our arts pupil premium. The best is a well-funded school that is locally accountable, so we'll end the divisive academy and free schools programme. The best is world-leading further education, which is so important to working-class students. And the best is university tuition open to anyone from any background for free, without racking up tens of thousands of pounds of debt in the process. The best is a national education service. You can have the best by voting Labour. The Tories, on the other hand, want you to be grateful for their offer to reverse some of the cuts made to our schools by the Tories. The money they say they'll put in doesn't even cover the money they've taken out. But their feeble promise is an admission that their cuts are damaging and wrong. So are they going to apologise to all the children who have missed out since 2010? Children only have one chance. They only have one childhood. Are they going to apologise to every child who has had their education damaged because of the cruel political choices made by the Conservatives in 2010? They would if they cared about our country's children as much as they care about their rich friends. Whatever statistics Conservative politicians bring out, if you're a parent or a grandparent, you'll know the real story. Teachers are spending more and more time filling the gaps left by cuts to other services and not spending enough time teaching. They're having to buy uniforms and even mattresses for pupils whose parents cannot afford them. I've met teachers who tell me some pupils can't concentrate in their lessons due to the hunger that they have when they come into school in the morning. And this is 2019. This is not the 1930s. Let's do it right by our children. Let's do it right to give them the real chance they deserve in life. The choice at this election could not be clearer. Labour will end damaging Tory austerity cuts and rebuild all our public services, from education to local government services to the National Health Service. And by the way, we will never send £500 million a week of our NHS money to big drugs corporations as part of a sellout toxic deal with Donald Trump. Our NHS is not for sale. I get the feeling you've got that message. It's Labour that truly values our public services. The National Education Service will do for education what our NHS does for health, because a Labour government will be on your side. We'll deliver a fairer Britain that works for many, not just a few. The future is ours to make, but only if we do it together. It's time for real change, and Labour will deliver that real change. Thank you very much. Thank you. It is. Thank you. It's now my very pleasant duty to invite Angela Rayner, our brilliant Shadow Secretary of State for Education, a wonderful woman who's achieved so much in life and is such an example to so many, to come and describe the policy that Gordon and her and a wonderful team in both of their offices and from many walks of life have put so much work and effort into. And I want to record my personal thanks to all of them for the work they did. Estelle Morris and Dave Ward for chairing the commission and all the others that worked so hard in it. Angela, please come forward.
Well, thank you, Jeremy, and thank you, Gordon, as well, because it's an honour to be here in his constituency. Gordon's been my colleague in the education team since Jeremy appointed me as the Shadow Secretary of State for Education back in July 2016, and I've seen 4 education secretaries since then. And Jeremy's seen 3 prime ministers. You'll be the next one, Jeremy. And it's great also to have Chris Webb and to have Liz here with us, who will make fantastic Labour MPs come December the 13th as well. I mean, Gordon has been a Labour loyalist, and he is to his bones, and I'm proud, absolutely proud, to have the pleasure of working with him. And I want to thank too our lifelong learning commissioners and the chairs of the commission. Dave Ward, an outstanding trade unionist who can't be here today because he is in the court fighting for his members, as he does every day. And Estelle Morris, a great education secretary of our past, who I believe has helped shape a great Labour achievement of our future. Because today we present a comprehensive plan to change our country for the better. What's led us all here today is something that Jeremy outlined back in 2015, the National Education Service. 4 years ago, Jeremy said, a National Education Service will be a lifelong service for a lifetime of opportunity. Jeremy was one of the first in our movement to call for a cradle-to-grave education system. So it's fitting that we are all here to launch the report of the Lifelong Learning Commission. But before I discuss our new policy, I want to say what it means in human terms. And the fact is that I wouldn't be here today without adult education. When I sat my GCSEs, some of my friends were thinking about college that they were going to go to. Some were even talking about A-levels or other employment opportunities. I wasn't thinking about anything like that. I was thinking about how I was going to provide for my baby. Having my son meant more to me than any qualification in the world. But you wouldn't have been a cynic to think that my life and the life chances of my baby had been written off. I spoke last weekend about how Sure Start helped me to become a better mum to my boy. But we weren't going to get very far if I didn't have a decent job. That's where college came in. That's where I had my second chance. I enrolled on a British Sign Language course and then a course for counselling, which led me to volunteer with the Samaritans. Later, I got a job as a home help. I returned to college once again, gaining an MVQ2 in care. I was a different person after all this. I'd felt embarrassed about my life and myself growing up. But now, I felt confident and inspired. Education was helping me, and by helping me, they were also helping my son. It's one reason why, when I was encouraged to become a trade union rep for Unison, I fully went for it. I went on to become the regional convener for my union in the Northwest, Unison, representing over 200,000 public sector workers across the region, including here in Blackpool. Adult education changed my life. It gave me, and so many others, a vital second chance. But too many people today are missing out. Our country faces huge and growing skills shortage, and the Tories, the so-called party of business, are making it worse. They are making it worse by locking thousands of people out of the opportunity to retrain and upskill. In the years ahead, businesses will need to hire 1.5 million more highly qualified staff. Under the Tories, they won't be able to do so because the very people who could fill those roles are locked out of the opportunities they need. If they want to get the skills that they need to take out a loan to cover their tuition. The Tories' decision to impose loans is causing the number of learners to plummet each and every year. And if you do return to education as an adult, you will often be unable to access any maintenance support, making it even harder for those who would most benefit from a return to education to access it. For many, adult education is too expensive, time-consuming, or too difficult to get into. So, we will throw open the door for adults to study, whether they want to change career, be made redundant, or didn't get the qualifications they needed when they were younger. People have been held back for too long. We will extend free education to ensure we have the skills we need to allow our economy to rise to the opportunities of the future. We'll make sure no one is shut out of education by giving people the support, time and funding that they need to train, so that we have the skills we need to meet the changing nature of work, rise to the challenges of automation, and to lead our economy through the green industrial revolution. So, as part of Labour's National Education Service, we will deliver a new, fully funded right to lifelong learning. Whether you left school with no GCSEs or 10, your ability to pay or your willingness to take on debt will not determine whether you get the education you need. In the last 8 years, the number of adults achieving a qualification in English, maths has fallen by 40%. This isn't their fault. So we will ensure that every adult is supported to re-enter education, and we will give them the chance to gain the basic qualifications they need, whether that's a level 1, a GCSE, or through functional skills, so that nobody is locked out of work or other opportunities because they did not succeed in education the first time. And if they don't already have them, we will provide the funding for everyone to access A-levels, T-levels, or MVQs, whatever level 3 qualification is right for them. These are the vital skills necessary for working people across the country. But we cannot let this be the limit of our ambition. Our goal is a high-skill, high-wage economy fit for the challenges of the future. Under the Tories, people are trapped in a low-skill, low-wage economy, unable to make ends meet, having to use food banks. Addressing this challenge requires a revolution in our education system. Not more warm words about parity of esteem or platitudes about matching the performance of Germany. We cannot simply pretend that we can copy a country with a society, economy and education system vastly different to our own. What we require is a far bolder than any attempt to imitate our European partners. That's why the next Labour government will deliver the most radical expansion of adult education in our country's history. As part of that next Labour government, National Education Service will throw open the door to retraining, upskilling and lifelong learning. Every single adult will be able to access 6 years of credits at level 4 to 6. Qualifications above A level and up to and including the equivalent of an undergraduate degree will be available to all those who need it whenever they need it. These are the whole range of qualifications that will be necessary to equip working people for the decades ahead. High-level, specialised qualifications in fields such as engineering, digital and construction, to name just a few. From someone who has been stuck in low-paid work or unable to progress, to those who face the risk of being displaced by automation, this new entitlement will empower them to take control of their own lives by being able to return to education whenever they need to. They will be given the real power over their own lives and their own careers and their own opportunities. That will transform this country. It will put power and opportunities back in the hands of the many. Not only will we make learning itself free and accessible, we will make sure that all barriers, not just tuition, are removed from the path of learners. Too many people will not be able to go back into education because they cannot meet the cost of living. If they had gone to university, they could get maintenance support, but this is not an option for too many people taking other routes. This cannot be justified. It locks people out of education, it creates unfairness, and it is a sign of an education system that privileges one form of learning over all others. This will not be the case in Labour's National Education Service. Learners who use their entitlement to study at higher levels will also receive maintenance support on the same basis as their equivalents in higher education. With the next Labour government, nobody will be unable to access an opportunity because of their own financial situation. But you know, poverty is not just about being penniless, it's about being powerless. Too often, workers do not have that power, that time, or that security. They have a right to request time off to study, but it can only be training for their current job, and it is easy for their employer to simply say no. This does nothing for the worker trapped on low pay or 0 hours, looking to move from a job that isn't supporting them to a career that can. They are trapped, forced to choose between taking a chance on their education and losing what little economic security they have. That is why Labour will put this power back in the hands of working people. Working with businesses and trade unions, we will give workers a new right to paid time off for education and training, enshrined in law so that they can access the opportunities that are right for them. And as I have seen for myself, sometimes the best education for workers comes from the very movement founded to represent us, our trade unions. All the evidence is that the Union Learning Fund has provided some of the most effective workplace education and training there is. So we will restore it in full and in real terms, not just ending, but reversing the Tory cuts. These measures will transform lifelong learning in this country, making it a right that is genuinely available to all, whatever their background or circumstances. And as well as empowering working people, it is an essential step for our economy to rise to the challenges ahead. Businesses report needing more and more people to take on skilled roles, but are less and less likely to feel confident that they can recruit the staff that they need. This has to change. Over 1 million jobs have been identified as being at risk of automation. And responding to climate crisis requires a fundamental change to our economy. It will be impossible to respond to these challenges without the radical expansion of lifelong learning that we are proposing. But lifelong learning is about more than just productivity. It's about the lives of individuals and our shared life as a community. Too often, we talk about education simply as a means for people to get a job. And there is no doubt at all that this is important. But there's no true value in a strong economy if we have not given people a life worth living. Lifelong learning has a role to play in the transformation, not just of our economy, but in our society as well. We know that education does not just improve people's productivity, it improves the quality of their lives. That is why lifelong learning is about so much more than the qualifications levels and skills shortages. Education, formal or informal, rooted in communities, can transform the lives of the people across the country. These policies are some of the most radical that a Labour government will propose. Education as a right for all throughout your life. A new universal basic service, the right of every citizen to learn in the way that suits them, to meet their own needs as well as the needs of our economy and society. The Conservatives say that we cannot afford to do these measures. They are wrong. We cannot afford not to do it. We cannot afford not to invest in the most valuable asset we have, the people of this country. I know from my own life that knowledge is power, and I wouldn't be here today without it. The last 9 years has shown us what happens when you strip away that power. Austerity, food banks, 0 hours contracts, poverty. And as a great trade unionist and educator once said, a rat race is for rats. We are human beings and we deserve so much more. We deserve the fruits of our labour. Knowledge itself is the fruit of centuries of human labour, the discoveries of maths and science, the great works of literature and art, the arc of human and natural history itself. All of this is our common inheritance because knowledge belongs to us all, not just a few. Today, we are here to fulfill our historic purpose as a movement, not just to be a voice for the voiceless, but to give them a voice of their own. And that is what we will do together. Thank you. Thank you. And I think Liz and Jeremy's going to join me for a few questions. You're chairing us, aren't you, Liz?
I am, Angela. Thank you so much. Hope everybody else found that as inspiring as what I did. So we're going to take 3 rounds of questions in groups of 3, and we'll be starting with the press. So can I ask that everybody's really, really quiet and respects our speakers, well, our questions, when we're asking them, and our speakers. So could I begin with Nick Eardley from the BBC, please?
Was this on? Yeah. Mr. Corbyn, a question about the floods, if I may. You called for the COBRA meeting today. If you were in Downing Street, as you want to be in a few weeks' time, what exact measures would you take today to alleviate the suffering of people in England? And if I may, just quickly on the cyber attack on your digital platforms, how serious was it, and who do you think is responsible?
And Tom Rayner from the Sky, please.
Firstly, on education, Mr. Corbyn, you said some of this lifelong learning programme would be paid for by VAT being applied to private school fees. Can we assume from that that you will not, therefore, be committing to abolishing those very same private schools in this manifesto? And if I may, we've heard you refer to the arrangement that Nigel Farage has proposed as the Trump Alliance. Can you say whether you think it will help or hinder your chances in places like Blackpool North?
And Libby Viner from ITV.
Just want to follow up on that. Many people seem to think that Nigel Farage standing down Brexit Party candidates in Tory-held seats is doing them a favour. Would he be doing you a favour if he held on and fielded candidates in Labour seats to split the Leave vote?
Okay, Jeremy.
Okay, I think there's questions for both of us there. Angela may wish to comment on particularly the education point. First of all, on the floods, they are obviously appalling, and I was in the Don Valley on Saturday talking to people there who had lost possessions, a home flooded before, badly damaged, and they couldn't get insurance for anything in the future. So they couldn't sell the place, couldn't move, can't get insurance. They are in a very, very difficult situation, as many others are. What would I have done differently? First of all, convene COBRA immediately to release Belwyn formula money. This is disaster emergency money that can be released through what's known as the Belwyn formula after Lord Belwyn of the past. And that would mean the local authorities had the money immediately to deal with the disaster that the floods are. But secondly, I would be far more assertive and assiduous about flood protection, flood defences and planning, and also the role of the fire and rescue service in this. Just take that in order. First of all, flood defences are a mixture of upstream river management to ensure that floodplains are there and work. They're there for a purpose, because we are getting increasing levels of unusually very, very heavy rain at various times of the year, particularly in the northwest of Britain. Secondly, that the flood defences that have been so grievously cut back over the years need to be put in place, and that means flood defences and overflow systems in all the places. And people were telling me that they were concerned about the quality of dredging of small streams and rivulets that are flowing into the Don in that area. And it's also about the fire and rescue service. They do an incredible job, but they've had a quarter of their staff cut, and they were telling me of their difficulty in just meeting the demands of people. And we would make it a statutory requirement on the Fire and Rescue Service that they deal with flood protection and flood relief, as well as obviously fire safety and fire relief that goes with it. And that will be something we'll make very clear and bring into government. And so I am very determined to achieve all of that. The cyber attacks that have taken place took place yesterday against the Labour Party platform. It was a very serious cyber attack. We have a system in place in our office to protect us against these cyber attacks, but it was a very serious attack against us. So far as we're aware, none of our information was downloaded, and the attack was actually repulsed because we have an effective in-house developed system by people within our party. But if this is a sign of things to come in this election, I feel very nervous about it all, because a cyber attack against a political party in an election is suspicious and something one is very worried about. A cyber attack has happened in 2017 against our National Health Service is something that is incredibly dangerous to the health records and the health care and treatment of potentially millions of people. And so we do need far better defensive arrangements against cyber attacks made against us. As to who undertook the attack, we're looking into all that at the moment, and we've obviously reported the attack to the National Cyber Security Centre, and they will be investigating it as well. On the point about lifelong learning, yes, we will use the VAT vehicle, which I mentioned to you. As to the other aspects of the education policy, we have our meeting this weekend to finally put together all the contents of our manifesto, so I'll have to ask you to contain your excitement for a few more days until the manifesto itself has been released. But I can let you into one secret: you're going to love it. And the other two questions were concerning Nigel Farage and what he may or may not do. And I think what we have before us is an alliance between Donald Trump and Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson. We know where that alliance is designed to take us, into a sweetheart trade deal with the United States that will threaten all of our regulations, all of our conditions, and threaten our public services. When they talk about access to a health market, I simply reply to them, last time I looked, it was called the National Health Service. And you know what? I'm not really very interested in playing all these parlour games about who might do this, who might do that, who might do this there, who might do that there. We are putting forward a manifesto, a proposal that we're putting to the British people of the opportunity to end austerity, the opportunity to invest in jobs for the future, the opportunity to create that better, fairer, more egalitarian society. I approach elections and politics in a positive frame of mind. We are putting a positive message out there. And you know what? Hundreds of thousands of people are supporting us, coming out to help us, and donating often very small sums of money to our election campaign. And I'm proud of that, because we're a party of the many, not just the wealthy few.
I mean, there's not much more for me to add from what Jeremy said, but to say that one of the things we're absolutely clear on, our manifesto will be a manifesto for putting people first. It will be about fairness. So our National Education Service is about what's right by your child, what's right by everyone. We will never put ideology before the best for your children and for your community. And our National Education Service will deliver for everyone in this country and will not be a rigged system like the one we currently have under the Conservatives.
Liz Bates, Channel 4 News.
Hi, so just to follow up on your criticism there of Nigel Farage, the reality is that you need him and the Brexit Party in seats like this to split the Leave vote and to give Labour candidates a chance to hold on here. So are you privately happy that Brexit Party candidates are still standing in Labour marginals?
And Hannah Miller from ITV Granada.
Thanks. On a similar topic, Mr Corbyn, you're here in Blackpool South where 2/3 of people voted to leave. Isn't the truth of this that you can have all the education policies you like, but people are looking to other parties to take us out of the EU?
And I believe we have James Graves from the Blackpool Gazette.
You promised to give every adult a free entitlement to 6 years of study for qualifications at levels 4 to 6. But will this include apprenticeships? And if not, what are Labour's proposals on apprenticeships?
Okay, Angela, would you like to go first this time?
Yeah, happy to go first. I mean, in terms of the deal between Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson, it's absolutely clear now, I think, for many voters in this country, that you want a different tact for this country, you want future for this country, you want to build this country, you vote Labour on December the 12th. If you want a hard right deal between Donald Trump, Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson, you vote Brexit or you vote the Tories, because it's the same party. I don't fear the Brexit party. I've been disgusted by what some in the Brexit party and in the Conservatives, including our Prime Minister, of what he said to try and divide communities like ours in the Northwest. I represent Oldham, and we know what the politics of hate can do. And my community, I'm confident, will reject Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage pact, and will see that the Labour government that they're going to get will knock the socks off the 1945 Labour government and rebuild our communities again. So I don't fear the Brexit party or Boris Johnson. Bring it on. And coming on to James's point as well, in terms of apprenticeships, the apprenticeship levy is too clunky, it doesn't work. The T-levels as well that the government have proposed, they're at risk of damaging their own policy around technical education, because quite frankly, to be honest, the Conservatives' further education, apprenticeships and adult skills are for other people's children. They just don't get it. We will work with employers to ensure that we have a decent apprenticeship scheme and offer, which we'll talk about as part of our manifesto launch, which will mean that actually our children that go on these apprenticeships will get guaranteed jobs at the end of it and a skill that's worthwhile that they can take forward. And I think that's the best and what we should be doing to our young people. And it's inspiring them to do what they want to do, funding it properly to make sure that providers can deliver quality. Because if we deliver that quality and we deliver for every young person and every person in this country, we will continue to be one of the richest nations globally, and we will continue to deal with the global issues we face, whether that's through climate change, whether that's through peace across our nations. We will continue to deliver that and lead by example in the UK when Jeremy Corbyn is the Prime Minister.
I think Angela's put it really well. People in Britain voted leave, people in Britain voted remain. People who are up against it voted leave, people who are up against it voted remain. Our whole policy and our whole strategy is to bring people together. If after this election you have a Tory government with the support of Nigel Farage, you will still have oversized classes, you will still have hungry children going into school, you will still have young people going into tens of £1,000s worth of debt just because they wanted to get to university. You will still have people that can't get the apprenticeships and the vocational qualifications that they need. So when you say to me, talk about education all you like, I like talking about education, and I will, because I'm passionate that I want the very best for every child in this country, irrespective of their parental income. And I want an education system that delivers it. A national education service will be our legacy, and it will be our message and our gift to the British people. We value your right to know, your right to learn, your right to participate in society. Lack of education and poverty is such a waste of resources, waste of time, and waste of opportunities for the future. And so I say to people, however you voted in the referendum, we will negotiate an agreement with the EU on the basis of which we would leave that would protect the market access, would protect the rights, and would protect the very precious Good Friday Peace Agreement in Northern Ireland. And put that alongside Remain as an opportunity for people to make up their own minds and their decision at that time. This is a way of bringing people together. Farage and Johnson only offer division, 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 and a deal with Donald Trump. And you'll then be saying, whatever happened to our wonderful National Health Service? Whatever happened to all the regulations that we had that protected our rights at work, our right to clean environment, and our right to safe food? All of that is at risk with the kind of trade deal they want to do with the USA. We will have none of it. The Labour Party's whole objective is to improve people's living standards, not attack them.
Moving on to our final three questions. I'll take Sam Blewett from the Press Association, and then I'll take two members of the audience.
Sam from PA, thank you. So it's been reported that the HS2 review has found costs have increased to 88 billion. Does this affect Labour's support of the scheme?
Sorry, I didn't hear it.
Sorry. So it's been reported that the HS2 review has found costs have increased to 88 billion. Does this affect Labour's support of the scheme?
Okay, sorry. Thanks, Sam.
Okay, and I saw a lady over here with a red. Did I see your hand up? The turquoise scarf.
Hi, my name is Tracy Hopkins. I'm here representing the voluntary community and social enterprise sector as a leader within that sector across the Fylde Coast. I was really heartened to hear mentions of volunteering by Angela and mentions of informal learning. As a sector, we're at the sharp edge of communities, whether it be a flood or whether it be about providing learning and training. I'd just like to know what kind of investment you think is needed in the voluntary community social enterprise sector in order to deliver some of the plans you have around the National Education Service.
I thought I saw this lady's hand, the lady with the glasses. No? Is it not you? Okay. And there's a gentleman over there. We'll take a gentleman with red top at the end.
They've all got red tops.
They have, haven't they?
Yeah, my question's about further education. Very pleased with everything you've said today. One thing I didn't hear, though, was a very essential part of any learning situation is the quality of learning in the classrooms. And one of the tragedies of the last 10 years has been the fate of teachers in further education who have faced redundancy, frequent restructures, part-time contracts, 0 hours contracts. In fact, teachers in further education can teach from level 1 up to and including degree level, and yet on average they get £7,500 a year less than teachers in schools. I'm just wondering how you're going to address that.
I'll say a quick word, then Angela will say something else. On the HS2 point, thanks very much. It is a rumour, therefore we don't know the accuracy of it, and I don't know what the outcome of the review on HS2 is going to be. Our priority is investment in rail and bus infrastructure north of Birmingham into the northeast, northwest and Yorkshire. And so we'll be looking very closely and very keenly at it. As far as we're concerned, that is the absolute priority. Because if we don't improve transport links from Birmingham northwards on the Y factor sort of to the northeast and the northwest, and develop a crossrail for the north, which would be a high-speed, efficient line linking Liverpool, Manchester, Newcastle and Hull, then I think we will see a problem over future economic development across the region. So our priority is absolutely that. I cannot really comment on the figures. They are a rumour at the present time, so we'll have to wait for that report to come out. Angela will answer the other questions on education, but I'll just make one point. I think your point at the end about FE lecturers is a very good one and a very strong one. As a young person working in the trade unions in the National Union of Public Employees, I worked with many unions, including people that were organising in both schools and FE sector. There was a time when being an FE lecturer was seen as a good job. It was a permanent job, it was pensionable, it was secure, and it was one that was a very respected profession. I now meet FE lecturers who are on dozens and dozens of individual contracts for bits and pieces of teaching they would do. In reality, their lives are very insecure, their job prospects are very insecure, and many are virtually or totally on 0 hours contracts. If we're to deliver the education service that we want, then there has to be an improvement in the working conditions of lecturers in colleges, and there has to be a lot of attention given to the stress levels amongst teachers in schools. Because when young people go to college and uni in order to become teachers, they're passionate to become teachers, love the idea of teaching children. Then they get into schools and find the stress imposed on them of the competition, of the league tables, of the testing. They just can't hack it, so they leave the profession. Any profession that's losing the numbers of people that the teaching profession is, government should step in and say there's something gone badly wrong here. That's why Angela and I have looked very carefully at levels of stress and the way in which we can get more people into the teaching profession, keep them in the profession by respecting what they have to do. And that's why we've decided we'd end Key Stage 1 and 2 testing and change the attitude towards schools. Our NES opens up such magnificent possibilities for so many people. I'm just so excited about it. And she's the person, and he's the person to deliver it.
So Jeremy's absolutely right about the transport infrastructure in the north, and we've seen that whether that's through the commissions that have been done, whether that's through the work that we've argued for some years as members of Parliament across the whole of the north. We have to have that investment. If you look at how much money is spent per head of population in the south compared to that investment in the north, it's a scandal. And if we're going to change our economy, we have to have that investment here. And Labour will deliver that through our transformation fund to ensure that connectivity, transport, super fast broadband, all those things that will attract businesses as well as our education system will deliver for our area. Because quite frankly, we don't want handouts, we don't even want hand-ups, we want the tools to do the job ourselves. And that brings me on to the point that the gentleman made about FE. Our trade unions in the further education sector are in dispute at the moment with this government, and I've urged this government to do something about it and support our further education and our tutors and teachers in there. You're absolutely right. There has to be parity of esteem and qualified, well-respected tutors and teachers in our sixth form and FE sector as well. And this government is failing that system and failing our young people and the staff that support them. We will put them at the centre of what we do in our Labour government. And I left Tracy till last because I felt that Tracy's comment was such an important comment. And it brings me back to whether it's the Mines support worker that has helped my mum while I've been here, because I do spend a lot of time away from home now, and she's had that support taken away from her, because as soon as she gets well again, they have to go off and help somebody more needy because they just don't have the resource. Whether that's the Christie support, the Macmillan support that's delivered, whether it's through the adult education, the cookery classes, my knitters that do that at a weekend with a group of my young women that knit for neonatal babies, little hats or anything else. These are all opportunities for people to find that love of learning, be connected back with their communities. And the problem with the Conservatives is they know the cost of everything and the value of nothing. I'm proud of the community and voluntary sector. Do you remember when David Cameron used to talk about big society? He didn't, and the Conservatives have failed to support our community and voluntary sector, who quite frankly are our heroes every single day. When you've seen the 9 years of austerity and the cuts that our communities and public sector have faced, it's been the community and voluntary sector at the coalface supporting some of our most vulnerable. And we will support you to do the vital work that you do in the next Labour government.
I'd like to thank you all for coming, but I'd especially like to thank our WASPy women who are at the front. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. We really do recognise the injustice that you've been faced with, and we will do something about it. So Blackpool, thank you all for coming today. I hope you've enjoyed this morning's event. I hope you found it as inspiring as I have. I'm really, really pleased to hear about what we're going to do with lifelong learning, just as I hope you are. So if you could just give us 5 minutes to get Jeremy and Angela out of the room. And, sorry? So if you could just give us 5 minutes to leave the stage and then go, really? For want of a better word.
We've got campaigning to do after that.
Yes, go campaign. Yes, go campaign.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is New. I'm a family doctor and a passionate healthcare provider. I'm a DACA recipient and I'm here today as a plaintiff. My family and I moved to the United States when I was 9 years old. My parents worked long hours at the restaurants to help our family achieve the American dream. Following their example, I went on to become the first undocumented person to graduate from UCSF Medical School. I am also a graduate of the University of California, Berkeley, and the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. I am here today. I've also since gone on to be named to Forbes 30 Under 30 for co-founding Pre-Health Dreamers, an organization that works to support undocumented immigrant students in their pursuit of health careers. I've made it my life mission not only to improve the health of all communities as a doctor, but also to support others in my community who share that same mission in their own journeys. And I'm here today to share my story, the stories of everyone who's rallying here today, and those who could not be here. Like 2 years ago, when I met David, a 15-year-old unaccompanied minor who walked through our doors at San Francisco General Hospital. And as I was treating his asthma, I couldn't help but be reminded of my own family's hesitation and confusion in accessing the healthcare system. And it's my family's experiences that have allowed me to walk on the path that I'm on today and have allowed me to provide compassionate, effective care to people like David. Today, I'm one of almost 200 undocumented medical students and residents who, without DACA, we can't complete residency training. And without DACA, the health and well-being of all the families that we care for will also suffer. I hope today that the Supreme Court will uphold, eventually, DACA because it is legal, because it is constitutional, and it has been highly effective for undocumented immigrants and our entire country. Ending it simply would be consequential for all of us. And today, I look around and I see my friends, my community, and everyone is here to fight to be a part of the country we love. And everybody deserves happiness, deserves safety in the place we call home. I'm proud to be a plaintiff. I'm thankful to have been in the courtroom today to make sure that our voices were heard as the decisions were made about our lives, and to make sure this country knows our home is here. Thank you.
Javier Becerra, the Attorney General for the state of California. We, along with a number of other individual plaintiffs, along with states like New York with Attorney General James, filed actions as well. I first want to say to you, to Ileana, the dreamers who have come, we all stand on their shoulders to try to make the case that no one is above the law and everyone must respect the law. We learn from a very early age there's a right way and there's a wrong way to do things. The federal government tried to terminate the DACA program the wrong way. And just as our parents would tell us, or as a referee on the field would tell you, if you do it the wrong way, you get penalized. This administration tried to then alter what it did and try to correct what it did by moving the goalpost to justify its unlawful action. And just as any parent would tell you, or any referee would tell you, and I hope the 9 justices of the Supreme Court will tell you, you do it the wrong way, you can't try to move the goalpost to say you did it the right way. And today, we stand here very proud of the arguments that were made on behalf of the more than 700,000 DACA recipients, but substantially many more dreamers, and so many, many more immigrants who are waiting to come out of the shadows. We're here to say that we understand that this nation is based on the rule of law. We understand, because we learned it from childhood, that there's a right way and there's a wrong way. and we're here to stand up for the right way to do things, and that's why we believe the DACA recipients, the dreamers of America, and immigrants who must live in the shadow will someday get to prove that the 9 justices of the Supreme Court got it done the right way, and we're very proud of that. Let me now turn the microphones over to my dear friend from New York, Attorney General Tish James.
Thank you. I want to thank Attorney General Becerra, and I want to thank all of the advocates, but I want to thank in particular the 700 dreamers in this country, and including the 42,000 from New York State. I think it's critically important that there are 2 issues that were discussed today, whether or not the termination of DACA should be reviewed by the court, and the answer is clear. Clearly the courts have wide discretion with respect to reviewing this question. And 2, on the merits, whether or not the reasons that were provided were adequate, were sufficient, and the answer is no. They came and they made conclusory remarks. Both the Secretary made a conclusory remark with respect to the termination and the rescission of DACA. And what we say is, if in fact you are going to rescind this program, you should take into account the fact that a significant number of individuals who have filed over 300 briefs have relied upon this program, from health institutions to higher education to businesses. I particularly want to shout out and single out Microsoft for all that they have done in standing up and defending DACA. It's really critically important that, again, by terminating DACA would provide great distress to the countless number of individuals who are here and who arrived here under the age of 16 to live and to go to school and to work. And as a result of that, we cannot terminate and or rescind a program where countless number of individuals have relied upon based on a whim or based on the fact that individuals decided that they wanted to end. And I think the words of Justice Breyer were absolutely critically important, as well as the words of Justice Sotomayor, Sonia Sotomayor, who indicated that it was President Trump who said that he would protect DACA recipients. He would protect the recipients, and he has failed to do so. And as a result of those statements coming out of the mouth of the President of these United States, this court should understand that this is a nation of immigrants, and that all of us should uphold the beliefs and the values of our country, and that is that immigrants are here to stay, and we should protect, again, these 700,000 individuals who came here for opportunity, for education, and for freedom. And so in the great state of New York, it's an honor and a privilege to be here and to represent the coalition, the 17 members of the Attorney General's Association who filed on behalf of these individuals. And I say, sí se puede. Sí se puede.
Dale, Eliana. Good afternoon. My name is Eliana Fernandez. I am 31 years old. I am a plaintiff. I am a mom, and I am a DACA recipient. I am honored to stand here today in front of you, continuing our fight to defend DACA. I am from the suburbs of Long Island, New York, which has been home for the last 70 years. This is our home. DACA is a program that forever changed my life in many different aspects, allowing me the opportunity to come out of the shadows, finish college, and become a homeowner. As a parent, defending DACA is my duty, is my responsibility. My children are the reason why I walked 230 miles from New York City to Washington, D.C. No physical pain can be compared to the emotional pain I will feel if we are ever separated. My children deserve to stay with their mother in the place they call home. I hope that the justices can see our humanity, our worth, and our contributions that we make to this country as the good Americans we are. Therefore, I hope that they rule on the right side of history. I believe that we will win. Our fight is not over after today. That's right. Today we are fighting for DACA, and tomorrow we're going to be fighting for citizenship for all. To all the marchers that work with me, those 230 miles, I love you, I admire. You have inspired me in so many ways to continue fighting, not only for DACA recipients, but for the 11 million undocumented people who live in this country. Muy buenos días, mi nombre es Eliana Fernández. Soy una organizadora con Make the Road New York. Soy una mamá y también soy una de las demandantes en el caso de DACA. Es con mucho orgullo y con mucha emoción que estoy aquí peleando por familias como las mías para que permanezcamos juntos. Mis hijos son la razón más grande que me han movido a estar en este movimiento y por los cuales he caminado 230 millas desde el estado de Nueva York hasta Washington, D.C. Mi esperanza es que los jueces, hoy después de haber culminado este evento, vean nuestra humanidad, nuestros valores y de las maneras diferentes que hemos contribuido a este país al que le llamamos nuestro hogar. Yo estoy segura y me siento confidente de que vamos a ganar y que la historia va a estar de nuestros lados y los jueces van a votar a favor de DACA. Muchas gracias, sí se puede. Home is here! Home is here!
We'll try to take a few questions, and then
Oh, it's my turn.
we're going to try to take some questions,
Mr.
and then we're going to go ahead and let others speak. But I know that there are others that want to speak as well. But we'll try to take some quick questions, and then we'll go from there. Any questions?
Yes. Can I ask Secretary Napolitano, who actually put DACA in place?
Sure, Secretary Napolitano.
Hi, I'm Janet Napolitano. As the Secretary of Homeland Security, I authored the memo that created the DACA program, and now I'm privileged to serve as the president of the University of California, the first university to sue to sustain DACA. I'm here with former Assembly Speaker and current board chair of the university, John Pettis. We're here. We have 1,700 plus DACA students in our student body. They're undergraduates, they're law students, they're medical students, and so the interest in this case, as you might imagine, is immense.
So
My name
so
is.
what even Justice Breyer said today, and he needs to get you to look at the cameras or they'll kill me. You can move over here a little bit. Is what's the point? If we send this back and all they have to do is sort of jump through some sort of rhetorical hoops, what's the point?
Well, I think that it's more than rhetorical hoops. They have to really do an analysis of the benefits that DACA produces, which are substantial and have been evidenced by and in all of the amicus briefs that have been filed. So I think and would hope that if they actually did a real analysis of DACA, they would recognize that this is a valid exercise of the executive's authority.
My name is Greisa Martinez Rosas. I represent 500,000 undocumented immigrant youth as part of United We Dream. I am undocumented, unafraid, and here to stay. I stand here in this courtroom being really clear that the lives of more than 700,000 undocumented people are at stake. And I'm optimistic that the Supreme Court justices will file on the side of justice. But whether or not they do that, one thing is clear: undocumented organizing and young people across the country will continue to fight. We will continue to win. We will continue to establish the rule of law, because at this moment, it is undocumented young people that are standing to defend the democracy that we also cherish. We're excited that United We Dream, our partners at NILC and all across the country have been here. 3,000 people are outside the courtrooms, and we believe that we will win. And with that, I'll pass it over to Mr. Ted Olson, who defended the case.
Can you lower your hand, Mike, please? Yeah, I can and I will.
DACA was a program announced and administered by Secretary Napolitano. It made perfect sense to designate individuals who came to this country as children, who've been vetted, have committed no crimes. The government doesn't have the authority or the power or the resources to move with respect to deportation proceedings to all the people that it might. So these individuals are the last persons in the world that we want to evict from this That's what our government is all about. If you're going to make decisions, you have to take accountability and responsibility for those decisions. If you're afraid to do that and don't do it, that's what will happen. They won't make that decision.
So how did you explain the work permit? Under what authority does the administration have to give 800,000 work permits out?
The Congress of the United States has passed a statute that says that if a person is in a deferred action category, that person may be given, and there's federal regulations and federal statutes, that person may be given authorization if they apply for it, if they meet all of the standards, and it makes perfect sense that someone that the administration has decided is not going to be deported is in a position to support himself or herself or her family and be a part of the community rather than be dependent upon the government. So once the decision is made, there are statutes and regulations that authorize the application for permission to work, and those are laws which the government hasn't even challenged.
Which statute provides the work permit law?
Well, we'll get that to you. I don't have a particular citation. We'll get you the actual citation of the statute. Believe me, no one challenged that in there. It is a law of the United States, and the government doesn't dispute that.
¿Algunas otras preguntas que tengan para nosotros? Sí, María.
En español, pero breve. ¿Les preocupa que las preguntas de los jueces conservadores tendían a inclinarse a apoyar la postura del gobierno de que esto ni siquiera está sujeto a una revisión judicial?
Mira, nosotros tenemos mucha esperanza que vamos a ganar en la Corte Suprema porque sabemos que es legal, que trabaja para nuestras familias y protege a más jóvenes indocumentados. Estamos listos para seguir luchando y estamos optimistas que ellos van a estar en nuestro lado también. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Gracias. Head to the rally. Yep. Yeah.
Hi, good to see you again. I'm well.
Thanks for being out here, huh? Yeah. Thanks for all your help with
Where was the use of social media? We can do yeah, we'll be waiting right here. Okay. So then at 12 we will be here. Alright, thank you.
I don't know where Maddie is.
Do you know where she's
Okay, so you know. Where's the Hill reporter?
He's over. I think Bauer's grabbing him. Yeah, we told him to go right over there right now. Maria, do you want me to carry your coat for you?
You know, where we don't talk.
Oh, so I went the other way. I said try it at full whack because sometimes the bulbs don't like to be dimmed. Yeah. But yeah, you're right. It just seems to have. Oh no,
There's a little bit still there.
Yeah. Don't worry, if it's obvious on camera, people will only blame me anyway, so it'll be fine.
They assume it's camera fault.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll get a phone call later on and go, Matt, there's a problem with your camera.
So I suppose here it's sort of all quiet some days and then your day like this, or does it not actually make that much difference to you?
To me, it doesn't make much difference. Lots of things to keep me occupied with in the bosses in the building.
I get the impression that around Whitehall, although in some respects it gets quieter, there's a list of things that have to be done during Parliament that they're waiting for it to start, so they're not actually, they're not quite twiddling their thumbs. Yeah. So all the stuff that's been piling up.
There's building maintenance that can get done when people have got
men
working in the building.
Yeah, right. Well, they seem to be knocking down a big chunk of the middle of Portcullis House today. Yeah. Drilling away at fountains. Yeah, there's water features that sit in the middle of the atrium. Apparently they're taking them out. So they're all covered in
Completely?
fences.
Oh, they're taking it all out?
Yeah, well, I asked the guy at the till today what's going on. He said they're taking them out.
Wow. That's no small undertaking.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of stone there, isn't there?
Yeah. And it's all going to come out the front door, presumably, or the back door, into that road by a red line. That's a lot to do.
Yeah.
Crikey.
So because they need to make more restrained space.
Yeah, that's what I said to him, is that for more seats? And he said, yeah. Which would be a bit of a shame, because that sort of having that bit of space in the middle.
It does break it up a bit, doesn't it?
Camera, could be very, very
busy.
Yes. Online R5 as opposed to 9.
Potentially, the water in the middle could absorb a little noise.
Yeah. Let's see. Isn't there one of these rooms where every Prime Minister leaves a little, they carve something into a corniche or something? It's not here.
Not every room.
Are they in different rooms, or is there one room where they do it?
So there are the Blair bees in this one.
Well, Blair, why did Blair do bees?
Because that was the initial of his surname, so it's been for a number of Malden's of the Lord's centre of.
Oh, above this door?
Yeah.
Oh, there's a bee, yes. Right, okay. Oh, yeah, on each bookcase. Yeah. What's that? Seeing the picture reminded me, what's her one?
That's in the across from the
Hello.
door frame.
Yeah, not too bad.
Fletching.
Have you heard from Jeremy? I haven't, which makes me think that he's still in no comms land.
That was well planned. This was improvised and
But he hasn't even
quicker than expected.
Right, okay, so yes, I see. Yeah, especially.
Well,
yeah.
Oh, I can't see that bit.
That's right. Just follow that up, and it's just on that bit of patterned moulding.
Oh, right, okay. I've got the wrong glasses.
You still not see it.
Well, I've got my reading glasses.
I mean, it's white. It's the same colour as everything else.
That'd be why I can't see it then. A white bee on a white background. Someone's going to buck the trim on, someone's coming with a big black paintbrush on it.
Okay.
Oh yeah, she went back in August. Yeah.
Whereabouts is she
How-
working now? Is she?
MOJ.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
of
she's
course.
been MOJ.
Yes,
Since she left ITV, she's
Yeah.
been MOJ. did a bit of shared parental leave, so I had a couple of months off, but she went back and was just 3 days.
What should she do there, Carl? She do comms?
Head of news, yeah. Yeah. Which side do you want me on?
It's delayed apparently.
It's delayed?
Yeah.
Delayed.
Starting in 4 minutes.
No,
So-
yeah.
Sorry.
Do we know how long, Dominic? Sorry.
No.
Was that what you were just asked?
I'll just check. I'll just triple check that they can
Because
switch
you're going to
the
be like half an hour or
yeah.
something, then we might as well hit the stop button. And
It's not going to be by half an hour, is it?
anything's possible.
Oh, hi, it's Dominique here, Downing Street. I'm just checking that you can see us. Yeah. Can you still see us? I just want to check that it's delayed. No. Great. Okay, thanks very much. Cheers. I know, thanks, bye. We'll just see. I just don't want to put this down and then he walks in and then I'm going to fire up again.
Understood.
I'm surprised it works. There's only a phone signal.
Well, yeah, but it's often hard to get a phone signal out in the street, so. Sound like full time, or she?
3 days. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, yeah.
Okay,
Otherwise,
fine,
full
that's
time.
fine.
That's lovely, yeah.
Do you think then in that case that we can just use it?
Yeah, basically. She's very confident if he's good enough to be doing sharing with her.
Right.
So he does the other.
Not live, but
Yeah.
He's happy with that.
when did you guys want it for? Did you guys want it for 6 or did you want it?
Which one?
We just
Yeah.
need to want it. If we can get it off
You should
after
definitely
it's
have
done.
I just wanted
Yeah.
to use it 2 days at home. Your phone's constantly getting emails going on to see about this.
Not as much as the own job.
I'm trying to get rid
When
of
at the weekends, it would be like that, or in the evenings, because she was kind of this name point of contact. She was one person everyone in Westminster might have knew they could reach for on TV.
Yeah.
Whereas now there's a press office, there's an out of hours system, so she can, yeah, if the phone goes, she doesn't have to pick it up if she doesn't want to, frankly, because it's an out of hours press.
Yeah, she's harassed by people in the office though, more sort of passing things up the chain.
Yeah, not they don't seem to do that so much out of hours. Also, that sort of thing happens when there's a big story or a big crisis on, and we're doing that all the time in a department like that. It's a medium to large department, but it's not all the time.
Yeah, of course.
It's every so often. The pace is a lot easier to handle.
I'm sure.
Compared to,
Yeah.
I mean, particularly that job, particularly that ITV Westminster.
Yeah, I know.
There's a lot to do.
That's like you say, you just become a focal point for so many different things.
Yeah, exactly. And people don't know which correspondence answer their phone.
Who got the target team jobs?
Correspondent wise, Paul Grandis and the Tories.
Right.
Ian and Romney are sharing Labour.
Yeah.
Rachel Younger
Oh, right, yeah, I thought it was doing the
is sharing Lib Dems with Emma
Maxwell?
Barry, no, not her.
Rachel Barry. Rebecca Barry.
Rebecca Barry, yes, thank you.
That's her.
Oh dear. And Brexit is Emma Murphy and Angus Sherry. Then is podcasting, along with She Has, and they do the odd lunchtime, and I do the odd lunchtime, and sort of, I mean, in theory, I'm from Preston in London. It just means whatever stuff has to be done. Really.
Is there going to be a? It kind of feels like not the full-on bus tour this time, but or is that planned for?
I don't know what the targeting sort of campaign plans are, but buses are sort of.
Yeah.
I mean, even 2015 when I did the Labour bus, there were buses, but
it's only for journalists.
Miliband would go from London to wherever the bus was most days. I mean, most days I'd get a train and I'd see Miliband on the train. You know, you'd go off somewhere. Maybe it's spend a night or two somewhere, but there was a lot of going backwards and forwards to the bus, and then the bus would do the local journey. In fact, he had two buses. Two smaller buses. I think the idea was to keep the press as far away from the bus. The press not doing the bus.
Same old.
So yeah. So there's a lot of that sort of goes on. But having a bus is it's a good backdrop and stuff like that. It's a good device. So then, totally got rid of it. I'm not sure if I haven't noticed it before.
No. That's what I was thinking. Wondering whether the Brexit bus has killed the electioneering bus.
Yeah.
Because that was the last one I think.
So,
Ramona.
I'm feeling like I'm standing in front of the television.